Member for North Island, Powell River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise in this House to talk further on the devastating impacts of the Phoenix pay system. On October the 4th, I asked a question for the people of my riding of North Island, Powell River, and too many of them are still waiting for answers. Across my riding, multiple people are struggling because they are not getting paid, Mr. Speaker. In the past week alone, we have had to open 4 new files. Mr. Speaker, I want to share with you the stories of the constituents in my riding. I have constituents who have been told that they must wait until they can prove they are going default on payments to be made a priority. Constituents who have not been paid because the system has incorrectly identified them as terminated or as having reduced hours. So people are showing up for work every day, doing their jobs, and not being paid because of a glitch in the system. One constituent told me that she was grateful to friends who have had the family over to feed them because they simply cannot afford enough food. Mr. Speaker, what is most concerning is that we have had more cases come into our office, not less. There are some people in my riding that have not been paid in multiple months. There are some that have not been paid any of their overtime. And there are some that have not been paid in full. In fact, a constituent today came to the office and said that because of a mix-up, they're actually being told they owe money that they have not yet been paid. Too many constituents in my riding, as well as people across Canada, have been left with little to no income for an extended period of time. How twisted and unethical can this get? It's embarrassing that the Canadian government is not meeting these basic obligations. Mr. Speaker, I was an employer for over 8 years. If I had not paid my staff, I would have been fired by my board. My constituents and I have many questions. I am hoping that tonight the member opposite can share with this House the reasoning for the government to ask proof of financial default to pay its own employees. Can they explain to me and my constituents why people are being identified as terminated while working, and working well, might I add, at their jobs? Can the member opposite explain why families have to be dependent on others for their basic necessities? How broke do you have to be to get your hard-earned compensation? Mr. Speaker, at this time, let's take a step back and look at the numbers. We know that the federal government has missed its self-imposed deadline to clear a backlog of 82,000 public service payroll cases. Further, we know that there are 22,000 unresolved cases. Here's my concern, Mr. Speaker. Those numbers represent only the cases as of July. What about the cases since then, like the ones coming through my office? People in my riding are feeling desperate, and the uncertainty is creating significant stress on individuals and their families. Trying to walk through this complex process where your financial existence is always on the edge of is reckless to ask of people who work so hard for our public services. We need to know, has there been a new backlog of cases growing since July 1st? So that they've missed their self-imposed deadline, which in itself is a fraction of the actual cases that need to be solved. Can we get a clear answer from this government? Mr. Speaker, my constituents deserve an answer, and they deserve it now.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member from the opposition for interest in this issue. I can guarantee that we on this side of the House are just as concerned as anyone by the performance of the government's pay system. We want to be able to guarantee that officials are paid for the work that they do. More than approximately 300,000 employees of our many departments are missing pay under the Phoenix system. As we have said, representatives of our department are working relentlessly to ensure that all employees will receive the sum they are due. The satellite pay centers, the temporary ones, were set up this summer in order to promote the resolution of pay problems while allowing for pay issues to move forward. Efforts are being made in order to streamline the processes and to increase the efficiency. Moreover, measures have been taken to guarantee that employees and managers across the public service receive information and the training that they need in order to use the Phoenix system effectively and efficiently. Employees in the the compensation sector are working night and day, 7 days a week, with the goal of eliminating the backlog and guaranteeing the precision of the payments made to all officials.
1,000 employees have had their cases resolved. However, because many employees have multiple transactions, there remains work to do. Currently, there are approximately 18,000 employees with some form of outstanding pay transactions remaining in the backlog. And examples of these cases are terminations that involve multiple transactions and changes to pay as a result of acting assignments. They require a fair amount of research to ensure that we're capturing proper pay amounts from those periods. Chaque mois, le Centre des...
Every month, the Pay Center in Miramichi receives an influx of new pay movements to be dealt with. As a consequence, the pay system still has some 80,000 cases that need to be dealt with, and normally this always happens within the service standard time. However, at this point, too many employees are waiting too long to be paid.
Be processed within 20 days, but we're only meeting our service standards 20 to 30% of the time. And because of this slowdown in processing, the number of transactions in the system has expanded so that we now have more than 2 months of additional work, representing 200,000 transactions. We will progressively return to normal processing over the next few months. We have said that there is no reason why any federal government employee should go without pay, and employees can request emergency salary advances through their own departments, and these payments can be issued within 24 to 48 hours. Anyone having difficulty receiving an emergency pay should seek assistance through the online feedback form for Phoenix. We are working hard to address these problems, and we will do just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to be absolutely clear. This is not just about my interest. This is an MP standing here fighting for her constituents' livelihood. The reality is the cases are continuing to increase. The Conservatives were wrong to imagine that the federal government could effectively replace its payroll systems with off-the-shelf software from IBM. Instead, they forced through a system that wasn't ready. Under the Liberals, the drive to save money has left people penniless. We know that the cost to taxpayers is over $50 million, and thousands of workers are still not being paid properly. Many of them live in my riding. Now we learn that an extra $6 million will go to IBM for not anticipating the result of the implementation. Will the minister finally take responsibility and quickly fix this mess?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, there is no question that public service pay problems are unacceptable, and our priority remains to ensure that employees getting paid for their work that they have done. We are all working as hard to ensure that the issues and processes of all employee pay transactions as quickly as possible. Thank you.